Midland is full of families on all different aspects. Not everybody's making six figures in the oil field. Not everybody has two parents at home.
Right.
A lot of us are just trying to make it. You know what I mean? And we do care about our kids' education. We love our kids, right? But we just don't know what to do or how can we help. So the first thing I really want to do is just implement ways to work with campuses on what they need, how we can get more community members or parents involved. What does that look like for them? And then helping our most struggling campuses. I mean, we don't have, I hear sometimes people say, well, we're on a 5-year plan. I'm like, my kid's going to be graduated by then.
Denise Norman.
Hello.
Thanks for coming in today. Really appreciate your time. You are running for the Midland School Board District 1.
Number one.
Number one. I really just want to get into it, and let's just jump right in. As a parent, we talked a little bit off camera, and as a taxpayer, right? And as just a citizen in this community, what made you decide to run for the school board?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
Well, first I want to say thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. So the reason I'm running, that kind of starts probably almost 10 years ago. When I first moved to Midland, I'm from Monahans, Texas.
Okay.
Do you know where that's at?
I've driven through it.
Okay, yeah, you would.
Texas is big. Turns out. It's a big state.
It is. So when I moved to Midland, my son at the time was young. He was in daycare. And I would hear from friends, family, people that I didn't know, if you care about your son's education, do not put him in public school.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a public school kid, so I wouldn't know. Okay.
So am I.
What's wrong with public school?
Yeah. And that was me. I was like, okay, why? And nobody really could give me a definite answer. It was just like, oh, yeah, don't do that. So I'm the type like, no, I need to find out more because I am a public school kid and I know there's a lot of kids that don't have a choice but to go to public school.
Exactly.
So if there's a problem, how can we fix it? So I did put him into public school and he's still in public school now. He's a 7th grader. But I did see a lot of struggles and challenges that were happening. And I felt like with my time as a parent, I was able to get on the PTA. I was able to join different committees. And more, I started learning, there were just a lot of decisions being made that I just felt like were not in the best interest of the kids. There were a lot of decisions being made that were good for parents, good for community members, but there were just so many things that were happening that just weren't really impacting our kids in a positive way.
What's good for parents, but not the children?
So one thing that came up, and this was with our previous superintendent, because our kids were falling behind. I mean, this is, of course, with COVID. One thing that we started doing was having interventions on Saturdays, doing that during the school year, not waiting till the end of the year to tell parents, oh, hey, sorry, your kid was struggling the entire year and now he needs to go to summer school.
Too little, too late. Okay.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so you want him to get everything that he missed done in 1 month, and then you're going to move him on to the next grade. So during that time, I saw a lot of parents and school board members, they didn't want to do it. And they said it was messing up vacations. It was messing up.
Okay. I see where you're going with
their
this.
Sports schedules.
I see. Like,
you
good
see
for
what
the
I'm
parents'
saying?
schedules.
Yeah.
Not great for the kids' education because they're falling behind.
Exactly.
Okay.
When more than half of our kids are behind,
More than half?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
More than half.
Okay.
So, so just things like that. And when I was on these committees and in these different meetings, I would totally be vocal and express how I was feeling. And then it would maybe make it to the board, maybe something would be done about it or nothing would happen. And so I just started learning like, man, if I got on the school board, maybe I could have an even bigger impact, because that is where a lot of the decisions are made, or at the school board level. And so it really just kind of went into just my years of being involved and trying to help and talking to teachers. It was just kind of one of those things that kept coming up. And so 4 years ago, I almost ran for school board. I haven't told a lot of people
4 years
that.
ago.
4
Okay.
years ago.
We're talking the pandemic times,
Yeah.
which was that would have been pretty wild, I'm sure.
Yes. And I'm so glad I didn't.
Yeah. Okay.
God was like, no, not yet. not right now. And I thought I knew a lot, and I realized I didn't know a lot.
Oh, in what ways?
Just what I thought a school board member could do, you know, what they were responsible for,
Okay.
how they could impact, you know, the community and different votes. And so within the last 4 years, I just used that as an opportunity to continue going to different meetings, continue talking to people, to really just gain knowledge. Okay, like if I am on the school board, what can I do and what can I
Right.
do? So I'm
What
really
impact can I
grateful.
actually make
Yeah.
versus it's just a title, I guess.
Yes.
Okay.
Or one thing I've learned too, people always say like, you know, if I get elected, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Well, it takes 4 votes to do anything. So I can have all the amazing ideas,
Right.
but if my fellow board members don't believe in that or vote with me, it's not going to happen. So it's also a lot of collaboration that happens on the school board to get things done. Yeah.
You got to have everybody behind you, right?
You gotta have people, but which I mean, it makes sense, and
Sure,
I'm
of
glad
course.
because you have, you know, with the school board, you have people in different parts of Midland that are voting people in, you know, so you're representing an area, you know, just like for me in District 1, that's going to be the east side and some of the south side, you know, but what's happening on the east side and south side isn't necessarily happening on the west side. And what I mean by that is like schools,
Hmm.
ratings of those schools, resources that are needed. So it is good to have representation for your area, because you know kind of what's going on your side of town that
Right.
might not be happening on the other side of town.
Right. Because there's 7 different districts, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And so each person, I guess, on the board is responsible for the schools, elementary through high school in those various districts. And you're like, well, my schools need this. And someone else will like, well, my schools need that.
Well, yes, but you're really representing the voters in that area.
Okay.
Because that's who's voting you in. Those are the
Gotcha,
only
right.
people that can vote for you.
Right.
So, like, my mom lives on the west side. She can't vote for me.
Oh,
You know, yeah, she doesn't because she doesn't live in that area. It's
I see.
where you live. But you're still responsible and you do make decisions that affect all the schools.
Sure.
Not just the schools in your district.
Okay. So District 1 is where the new Midland High School is being built.
Correct.
With our social media a lot, we put out obviously clips around Midland, Texas. And especially when it's talking about people in city council or any sort of like public figure,
Right.
this high school is seems to be very controversial in the golfing community.
Yes.
And I'm just trying to figure out, I'm not a golfer, so I don't know, right?
Okay.
I also don't have children in high school.
Okay.
But why is it so controversial in terms of people going like, well, what about my golfing?
Yes. Well, I mean, it's really an interesting situation. So I live near that golf course.
Okay.
So that is District 1. That's on the east side of town. That is it was a private golf course. So I don't know if you know, but a few blocks down is the public golf course. But that golf course, the owners of that golf course sold it in 2019. And I don't know if they weren't making enough money or what was going on, but they sold that golf course. And they knew, you know, once Midland ISD bought it, that it was going to be a high school. And I believe they
At some point.
Yeah, at some point. And they even wrote an article in the paper saying how they were glad that it could be used for a high school since it couldn't be a golf course anymore. So there was a bond that came up in 2019, and had that bond passed, the high school, it's weird. This year would have been the first year that the kids would have been going to that school.
Oh, okay.
So whenever that bond failed in 2019, the district did allow the golf club to continue utilizing it. They were leasing it out.
Okay.
So the golfers were able to continue to be there, pay their dues, and continue to enjoy it. So then when the next bond came in, and I think that's so important because when that bond failed, I was supportive of that bond. I mean, I didn't like every single thing about it, but it's like, I don't work in the schools to know every little thing that they
Intricate,
need.
right.
Yeah. You know, and so, when it failed, you know, I was like, okay, well, it was close. And that was a whole thing too with the voting for that.
Mhm.
Were you here for that?
Yes.
With like the missing box and the votes.
I didn't get
like,
into all that. I just knew it was fairly close, I guess,
It
right?
was really, I'm like, we could put this as a Netflix movie. But
Let's A podcast? Let's do
Let's
it.
do it.
All right, we're in.
Let's do it. And so, you know, but the thing was, once it failed, the need wasn't going away.
Sure.
And that's what I think people kind of didn't realize. It was just getting greater.
Right. People were like, guess we don't need a new high school.
Yeah, like we're done. We're just going to keep cramming y'all into these
Okay.
rooms.
And the reason why is that Midland high schools, it's getting older, right? There's more and more kids that are going there, so need new high schools. Like that makes sense to me.
Well, and when the high school was built, it wasn't built. We're almost at 30,000 students
In the district.
in
as
the
a whole.
district as a whole.
Wow. Okay.
So just think when they first built Midland High, we didn't have almost 30,000 kids. It's been growing and growing and growing. And we just haven't passed a secondary bond at the time in
Right.
so long. And so we were just kind of making, doing Band-Aids and let's add another wing and not really just taking care of the root of it.
The root of the cause.
Yes.
Okay.
So now that bond has passed, and so the building's going to start. And I'll say this, I get it. I grew up watching golf sometimes with my dad.
Sure.
When I was probably, I don't even know, fourth or fifth grade, my dad took me to play golf in Monahans. I'll never forget. I'm like, okay. And it was cool. It was fun, and I even took him out to see the Branchland golf course, and he was like, wow, this is really nice. And it is a beautiful golf course. And so I understand and I empathize with those golfers,
But to be fair,
yeah.
it was they sold it.
Yes.
And they sold it for a reason. You would have to imagine, right?
Yeah.
A golf course that's crushing is not going to sell.
Right.
Okay. So
yes. And they got to enjoy it for 4 more years.
Right.
From.
So, and I don't want to keep on this topic, but I'm just looking at it from the perspective of, was it a communications error, or was it just people going like, I didn't really think this was going to happen anyway, or just like, I'm going to miss this golf, nostalgic or something? Or
I've heard all of those reasons.
Okay.
Yeah. And I know some people that were members there, and then I know some that just would go play sometimes. And so I've heard, some people just didn't think it was going to pass. And some of them said that and they didn't even vote. And it was like, well, that's why, it is important to vote. And then I have heard people that don't even live here anymore, but still talk about just what it meant to their family. So
I can see the nostalgia, but at the same point, like you gotta, like I was saying, like if this was a new casino or something, right? Or something controversial, but this is for children.
Yes.
This is for the future generations of this community.
Right.
So I'm kind of going like,
yeah, and the voters voted for it.
Right.
That's the biggest thing.
Cut and dry.
Yeah,
Right.
the voters voted, and they didn't pass it last time, then we passed it this time. So, yeah. So I'm excited. I'll say that for District 1 to have a brand new high school.
I saw the plans.
The renderings, yeah.
It looks like it's from the future.
I know.
Like it looks super future sci-fi almost. I'm like, that's kind of cool.
But I think, what I think that the reason that it looks like that too, if you live here, is because we haven't had anything new in so long. If you go to other cities, that's what you see in El Paso and Dallas and Houston. But Midland, we're just kind of putting Band-Aids on everything. So it looks like it's just too much, but it's really just keeping up with where we should have been a long time ago.
And even outside of schools, I mean, there's a lot of new developments popping up.
Oh yeah.
Which I feel like is taking this city further into the future, which is, I find great.
Yes.
Right. I agree. Okay. So all right, we're done with golf.
Okay.
What are some of the biggest challenges facing the school district? And maybe it's from like struggles that parents are having that you hear and you're a parent, to teachers and to children.
Well, there's so many different aspects of it. I think number one, the bond is taking care of this part, is just the grade reconfiguration. So,
what's that?
So grade reconfiguration. Right now, we have our pre-K through 6th grade in elementary.
Okay.
We have 7th and 8th grade in junior high, except for one middle school. And then we have one freshman campus. They're not on the actual high school campus. And then the high school campus, we have 10th, 11th, and 12th. Well, with this bond passing, and this was a big part of this bond, it was a grade reconfiguration, is elementary will now be pre-K through 5th grade. So you're going to take 6th graders out of elementary and put them in middle school.
Okay, got it.
So you're going to have 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Yep.
And then you're going to take 9th graders out of their own private school and put them at the high school. So you'll have 9th through 12th grade at the high school.
Yeah, I mean, I'm old, so that's what I remember. It was like, uh, I think once I hit high school, it was ninth grade,
Mm-hmm.
toughens you up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Freshmen, they get toughened up when you're putting
Yeah.
them with the rest up the 12th graders and whatnot. And I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. When I was in high school, sixth grade was still at elementary.
Okay.
But I can see how it's another like sixth graders. You're a tween,
Oh yeah.
right?
If
You're
you've
hitting that
been in
age.
elementary school and you see some of those sixth graders, you're like, how old is he?
Yeah.
How old is
Are
she?
they driving?
Yeah, they're
Okay.
so tall. And then they're just there with the little, first and second graders, and they're just living completely different worlds at that point. And
Right.
so, yeah, and one thing that helps, I mean, I can tell you, I've talked to a lot of teachers at the different elementaries. The hardest class they have are the sixth graders because they're growing up and they're being treated like little kids,
Right.
like follow the leader, put your hand behind your back.
Oh yeah, that would be
Yeah.
terrible.
And they're like, so they're trying to run the school. Well, when you have them in middle school, so like SJ, that one is sixth, seventh, and eighth. They don't have any problems with the sixth graders because they're all terrified of the seventh and eighth.
They're getting
graders.
acclimated quickly.
They are.
Yeah, that makes
They
sense.
are. And it's the same thing for freshmen. We've had a lot of issues at the freshman schools because you're bringing kids from different junior highs together. And it's like, who's the big man on campus?
Mm.
And now when we have our ninth graders at the high school, you're going to have just the older kids being able to let them to show them how
Right.
how this works and to get acclimated.
There's a hierarchy.
There you
know
go.
what I mean? Like it's
There
part of
really
growing
is.
up. What other types of challenges are we facing?
We do have some discipline issues. And I think that, some people I hear say, oh, there's no discipline issues at my school. Well, we have a lot of different campuses with different issues.
Sure.
So there are teachers. We have a lot of new teachers, and sometimes classroom management is an issue. So being able to just support, the new teachers with just how it is to have classroom management. And then we do have a lot of still overcrowded classrooms, which that's kind of not going to go away until we get these new campuses.
Mhm.
For example, we have only 4 junior highs right now. We're going to have 6.
Oh, okay.
Odessa already has 7. So
What's up with that?
I know. I'm like, we're supposed to be beating them, right? So
I sense that rivalry all the time.
So just that with our teachers, with discipline, just supporting them. So there's things that we have to wait on the bond for, but there's still things that we can start doing now and do a better job of now.
When you say discipline, do you mean like how discipline is happening, like, or the methods, or like?
I think really just addressing it.
Okay.
One thing that happens is kids will get in trouble in class. They're sent to the office, and then they're able to just come right back.
That was me.
Was that you?
Yeah.
And I think it depends on what the situation is. But if you're constantly doing that and teachers just feel like they don't know how to handle it or they need help, like there could be some more communication to make sure. Because some teachers are fine. Like, okay, did you calm down? Okay, come sit down and get your work done. But you have some teachers that feel like they're not being valued. And it's like, this kid just,
Sure.
cussed me out and you're just sending him back. Like, what am I supposed to do?
Okay, let me clarify,
Oh.
Denise. I wasn't
I
cussing
wasn't
anybody
saying
out.
that was you. I'm just
I was
saying.
class clown.
Okay.
So it was like making jokes.
Okay. That was
and
you.
Not paying attention. But then I would go and make the dean laugh. So
So what would happen when you come back to class?
nothing. I mean, in terms of like, I'm respectful enough to recognize,
Yeah.
okay, like I disrupted the class.
Yeah.
I need an audience, but I disrupted the class.
Right.
And I got sent to the dean or whatever.
Yeah.
And then we had a little chit chat and I would come
And then
back
you're
and
fine.
I'm fine.
And it was good.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
So
wouldn't-
see, and that's fine.
Okay.
But we got to make sure that we're supporting teachers and,
Sure.
and it's communicating with them, being able to talk to them and make sure so they don't feel like, their job doesn't matter.
The discipline issues
Mhm.
sounds like it's going to be on the teacher side, like addressing those. What are the parents
Yeah.
voicing?
When it comes to discipline, so I went and talked to a group. This was probably a couple months ago, and it was a grandfather.
Okay.
And the one thing all he cared about was the discipline. He was saying how back in his day, kids didn't talk to teachers that way. And
No, there was some strict discipline.
yeah,
back in those days, I'm sure.
yeah. And he just felt like kids are just able to talk, in the hallways any kind of way, talk to teachers any kind of way. And that's what he wants to see changed.
Okay.
He wants to see, kids respecting teachers. And if
Sure.
they're not respecting the teachers, that something's being done about it.
Sorry, old man. This is I want to talk to my friends.
And I think that just goes with, because you have your veteran teachers who can handle it, and they go and help our new teachers. They go in and sit in. But if they're always doing that, then that's an issue, and that
Right.
that could be something that we need to address. But it really just comes down to going to each individual campus and talking to them, and not so much telling them what they need to do, but walking with them through that.
What's going on with academics as a whole?
So right now we do have a lot of failing campuses. That's number one. That's just district wide. And that's a big issue, because when you look at the east side and south side, a lot of those schools are going through those issues, or they've now had to be turned into a partnership school, or something drastic has had to happen to help, these schools. I'll give you an example. There used to be, I don't know if you know, Crockett Elementary. Okay, so there was a school named Crockett Elementary on the east side. It was
Okay.
a neighborhood school,
Mhm.
which meant kids that lived around that area went to that school. Well, it was failing over and over and over. And when your schools are failing, the state does look at that.
When you
And
say failing, it's based on test scores?
yes.
Okay, gotcha.
And well, there's a lot of different things, but basically that growth, test scores,
Okay.
just all that they're in charge of to do. The state has different things that they review to decide on that. And so what the district did at the time, and I don't even know what year this was, I'd have to look. It was while I've been here. They basically took all the kids out, all the administration out of that school, and sent them elsewhere.
Okay.
They changed the name of the school to General Tommy Franks,
Okay.
and they started busing in kids from another side of town. So it was like, eh, you know,
I'm a little bit confused on like what the methodology is, right? And
Mhm.
so
I was
let me
too.
take a stab at this, right? So
Okay.
are you saying like kids who have lower test scores, let's take them and disperse them to schools that are not failing,
hmm
and maybe being integrated with those teachers and integrating with those classes might help their test scores as a whole?
Instead of just helping the neighborhood
Right.
kids at that
Helping
school.
the,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Did it work?
It's doing better,
Okay.
but there's not neighborhood kids that get to go there. There are a
Right.
few. I know one that's there, because I'll ask kids, what school do you go to? And, if they live around there, they're like, oh, General Tommy Franks or Tommy Franks. I'm like, okay, that's good. But a lot of kids don't. They're being bused from the other side of the loop. They're coming in.
The general consensus to me would be I want to go where my friends are,
Mm-hmm.
right? And my friends are probably in my neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
and I've grown up with them through other classes. Now we might be going to completely different schools,
Yes.
and I have to make all new friends, and
Yes.
it doesn't sound ideal.
No,
Okay.
it doesn't. And that's an issue. Why didn't the district or the school board, take immediate measures to try to help that school, or, whatever they could do to not take all the kids out of that school?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because if you look on other certain sides of town, they have neighborhood schools. So what's the issue? What happened in that situation?
Right. And how do you determine which kids are going to go where? And
Yep, and that happened to Travis Elementary. That's not in District 1, but that's on the south side of town. Same thing happened. It was just failing over and over and over. And I mean, at some point, the state comes in. I mean, I don't know if you've seen like the Houston ISD takeover.
mm-mm.
So yeah, the state can just come in and kick all the board members out, and they'll be the board, and they'll
Oh.
make changes. So before that happens, the district tries to find ways, or school board tries to find ways to rectify that, so they don't have to go. But who are the ones that get kind of the low end of that? It's the kids.
Right.
Now you have to be bused elsewhere. Now you have to go somewhere else, and other kids can come and enjoy the schools. So District 1, I mean, that's something that's happened over the years. Just really east side and south side of just not being able to, and that's another reason I'm running too. It's like, why are we not fighting enough for District 1, District 2 to be able to prevent that from happening? Or what plans do we have that we can help? Because there are some really great things happening in MISD. There are some schools that are A-rated that are doing great. And that's great. Let's keep that there. Let's keep doing that. But what about these other schools? They keep failing and failing. What are we doing about those schools? And
Okay,
why are
so
we taking so long to fix it?
right. So take an A-rated school.
Hmm.
How do you, I'm not going to say me because it's not me, but how do you dissect why it's an A-rated school?
Hmm.
And are you trying to then take bits and pieces and going like, how can we take
Right.
aspects of these A-rated schools and implement them into lower
Right.
rated schools, right? So
Right.
in your opinion, what are some of those sorts of things that would make an A-rated school?
Hmm. Well, so you have to, and it gets kind of interesting when you look at the A-rated schools because demographics are different. So
Okay.
that's number one. But I think what we should be doing is when we do have these partnership schools. So Sam Houston is one. We partnered with Third Future Schools. Well, there's some really great things happening there. Why are we not, you know, using what they're doing at some of our other campuses to help? Idea Travis, if there's some really good things happening there, why are we not trying to work together? And that's been an issue as well because we do have a lot of choice schools in Midland, which I think is great. But there's just like this divide where it's like, well, you're not really MISD.
Oh,
Yes, kids even say it. And it's like, no, everybody's MISD. But I think that if we could kind of get that out of our head of like there's a separation and work together, that's what we should be doing. I mean, when you think about a partnership,
right.
it's like, hey, let me see what I can learn from this school. Let me see what I can learn from this school and work together. So you don't always have to recreate or reinvent the wheel. Just go see, like you were saying, what's working over here and let's try it.
Okay. I mean, what you're saying is making sense to me.
It's like, just try it.
Obviously, you're a big advocate for teachers.
Yes.
How do you bring in more teachers in Midland, and probably more importantly, how do you retain the teachers that you have?
Yes. So bringing in teachers can be kind of interesting if you're not already from the area. So I work in oil and gas. So we bring in people from, or you probably know, all over the world
Sure.
in Midland, from, office seats to out in the field, So it's kind of the same thing with teachers that I know some men that have come here first for oil field and then they bring their family and some of their wives are teachers, but a lot of them are not happy when they get here. Number one, it's facilities. Number two, it's the way the community talks about public school here in Midland. A lot of negativity. They don't want to be a part of that. And then just the support of teachers. So I think help. We need to continue to push on just trying to always try to find teachers to come and work. But I think to retain them is we need to be having a really good partnership with them. I talk to teachers, and it's two different tracks going on, right? So you have new teachers
Hmm.
who don't feel supported.
Hmm.
Some of them, like classroom management, they don't know how to handle situations. They just need more support, daily support. But then you have your veteran teachers who just feel like they're not respected as veteran teachers. And when I say that, it's like they're always having to do new hire things. They're always having to go help.
Hmm.
They can't really teach what they want to teach and have fun because it's like we're doing another test. It's like test after test after test. And so I think just if we talk to our teachers, one thing we have is a lot of very high performing teachers in the district, and they're amazing. Why are we taking the time to talk to them? Like, hey, what's going on your campus?
Hmm.
What's here? What are we not seeing that we need to see? How can we help you? A lot of times we like to tell people or tell schools, oh, you should do this. Like, why not just ask the people that are there, that
Yeah.
are working there every day,
Right.
and ask them, like, what can we do? What do we need to do? What are we missing? What do we need to look for? What resources do you need? A lot of times teachers, especially our high performing teachers, they're not being asked that. And we are having a lot of teachers and principals who are quitting. A few just quit this last school year. And
Oh, really?
yeah. And they just don't feel supported. It's kind of like, okay, well, here you go. Have a good school year, and there's like chaos going on all day, every
Behind the scenes.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like just being checked in more is what I hear a lot from teachers. Like, just come check in. The veteran teachers just want to be trusted that they can do their job. A lot of times they're doing the same thing that the new hire teachers are doing. And so we have to really make sure we understand the different levels that the teachers are in. So if you have a first time teacher that's just graduated from college, you don't have to treat your 20-year veteran into the same thing that
Right.
one's doing. Of course they work together and they love to work together, but I think we just have to take the time to talk to our teachers and hear them out. And sometimes I know that's hard, like as an admin or a leader, sometimes teachers feel like they don't want to say too much because they don't want to get in trouble. So being on the school board, I think being able to talk to teachers and have that relationship helps. Because I talked to a teacher the other day and she was like, "Yeah, the superintendent came and I love her, but she went over all this stuff and then she asked, okay, so what do we need to work on?" And she was like, "I was scared. I didn't want to,
Sure.
tell her." And so
It's like going to therapy and you don't want to like,
you're like, "Am I gonna get in trouble?"
right.
And I totally understand that. I get that. So just being able to have like a school board member, because that's what the school board member is kind of that bridge between the district and the community.
That's what I wanted to ask.
Yes.
Like you're talking about like creating a more open
Hmm.
and engaging area for teachers to be heard,
Right.
right, and to voice their thoughts. But like, how does that actually happen
Yeah.
with you on a school board? Like, I don't like. What's your day like being on a school board? Like, you know what I mean? Can you walk me through that type
Well, I'm
of?
not on the school board yet, but
Well, let's make the assumption that you are.
okay.
I'm curious. I'm
Yeah.
like, how do you? Is it just creating new programs? Is it
So the one thing about a school board is, you know, and goes back to what you're allowed to do and what you can't do. The superintendent is the one who's running everything. The
okay?
school board hires the superintendent.
Got it.
And something I've seen currently and in the past is we'll hire superintendents and then we don't support them.
Why is that?
That's what I want to know too.
Great question. Okay. All right.
I mean, you might not agree with
Sure.
everything, but the superintendent gets all the feedback, right? The good and the bad. If it's like MISD is not good, that's on the superintendent. But sometimes school board members just kind of let the community bash the superintendent and the cabinet and teachers, and somebody has to be able to step up and say, and I'm not saying everything's perfect and everything's right, but you have to be able to support the person that's steering the ship, and that's the superintendent. So just being able to talk to the superintendent, and I've got to work with Dr. Howard, with the bond. I was on the bond committee. I'm on the bond oversight committee. Being able to talk to her about things that are going on, and she's great about talking, to different teachers and people in the community. But it's really ultimately up to her and her team to deliver all of that.
Okay.
So I was part of the strategic planning committee. So it's coming up with just different goals for the board or for the district. And then the board votes on those. And that's what the superintendent and her team are trying to make sure and get accomplished, or whatever those board goals are. So when you're on the school board, you have to be bold enough, to talk about, hey, one thing that I would want to do is say, I mean, just in District 1 or any of our schools, okay, these F-rated schools, what's the plan? We need to make sure, do we need resources there? Do we need more money at these schools? What is it that we need? What are we doing? Can we add daily check-ins? Can we add, just being able to really advocate
Hmm.
to bring those schools up.
What can parents do to help the school district and the school board and the superintendent?
Right. Um, I think it depends on the campus,
Okay.
first of all. Because you can't just do like one brush on everything. There's so many different needs. Like some schools, they need more dads visible on campus. They need some hall monitors.
Mm.
Maybe they need help with these kids are just not getting to class on time. Some schools might need parents or community members that can come and read. So I think it depends on the principal and her teachers on what they're needing. But I think it also takes us going and saying, hey, if we start a program, we want to get more parents involved. What is it that you need? And maybe it's not an everyday thing. Maybe it's like every Friday we're going to do this, or once a month. One thing, my oldest son, he went to Abel Junior High, and they had a dads on campus one time, and it was so cool. Like my husband brought his barbecue grill out there and was
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
It was cool. And he was cooking like hot dog or burgers and stuff. And then other dads were coming in. Some were like coaches for the day. They were helping the coaches. Some were helping math if they were good in math. Some were just in the hallway. And it was just the coolest thing. And I'd love to see more of that, just something fun and inviting where parents can come. But I also think we have to be understanding too, because I always hear like, well, it's the parents' fault. It's like, well, we're working.
Right.
Some of us have jobs.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, working parents, that's got to be rough. I mean, I was a
Yeah.
working parent,
Mhm.
right? I remember doing the dad things,
Yeah.
being out on the playground and making sure no one was getting bullied or anything like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've got working dads, you've got working moms.
Mhm.
So how do you balance that?
Yes. You just have to find times that work. Just the other day, my niece and nephew at their school, they had dudes and donuts, which is really cool. And you should have seen all the dads. It was early in the morning. So many dads and uncles and grandpas coming over just to have, donuts with them in the morning. And so if you provide the opportunity, they'll come. But you do have to keep in mind that, yeah, some kids are coming from a 2 working parent household, 1, parent household, maybe grandma's raising them, and can't get around well. So you have to be mindful of that. But if you can get some that can start coming, I think that's one way, to help. But again, it goes back to just what that campus is needing and not us telling them what they need to do, but asking them and then being creative enough and willing to think outside the box of like, how can we make this happen? I mean, I'll give you an example. I was at a PTA meeting last month. Or no, was it this month? Sorry, my days run together sometimes.
I'm sure you're busy.
And we were talking about how we needed to get the PTA membership up, and it's like, what can we do? And I always hear this as well the last 10 years, like, well, all the parents will go to the football games, but they won't go to the school. So I'm like, okay, well, if all the parents are going to go to the football games, why don't you set up a table and try to get some people to sign up for PTA or whatever it is? If you're trying to get literacy or books into the home, why don't you have something there when, hey, take a book home, with you? So you have to be creative enough to think outside the box. And that's one way to do it. If you have a space where parents are going to come, then use that as an opportunity to help bridge some gaps wherever you need. And no, you're not going to reach everyone, and that's okay.
Sure.
But we can keep adding on to that. And parents will feel more involved, like, oh, okay, I know your principal, or I know your teacher, or I met so-and-so. And the kids love it. Even if it's like not their parent that's there, but someone else's dad. It's like, hey, I saw your dad over here, or I know him, or, so just having more opportunities like that.
And you had me at Dudes and Donuts. Sounds pretty good. I did want to say though, like, you're right about that aspect of like, okay, well, find where the parents are.
Mhm.
Right. And introduce them to, they don't know. Nobody knows what they don't know.
Exactly.
Right. You've got to introduce people. I'm going to throw it out there.
Throw it out there.
That the school board, the district, why don't you can hire me. Okay. And I will through Facebook ads and Instagram ads, I can reach every parent in Midland. Easy.
Okay.
And we can run all different types of programs and campaigns to at least up the communication.
Yes.
Right. And the visibility. Because I feel like whether you be a parent,
yes,
or just, somebody who doesn't have any kids in the community,
right,
you've got to amplify the communication, whether it be just to inform people of what's going on in the school districts or with certain schools, or just it's informative, but it's also potentially educational.
Right.
Right. So I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, let me say this,
please,
in defense of our communications department.
Yes.
So if you are a parent in the district, and parents will probably agree here, we get communication like all the time. Text messages,
you got the apps,
emails, calls.
Sure.
I mean, some parents are like, how do I turn this off? I mean, so we get, from the district, from our principals. So I do believe it's more, because that's what when I hear people say they don't communicate, I usually ask them, do you have a kid in the district? And usually the answer is no.
Right.
And so, but partnering with someone like you, would be great to help, get that out to more people within the community. So I think there's definitely a difference in like parents. We do get a lot of communication. I mean, Dr. Howard sends out a weekly email to wrap up just the week of what's going on, what's coming up. Our principals send something out, just, okay, same thing. This is what happened this week. This is what's coming up. If there's ever any issues, we do get those communications. So I
Okay.
think as far as people that don't have kids in the district,
Yeah. How can they get involved?
I know now you can go to the Midland ISD website and there's a communications page there where you can sign up to receive newsletters. And so I'm guessing it's going to be the same newsletters that we get.
Okay.
Yes.
I want to segment those. I'm always in marketing brain, Denise.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No,
But,
you're good.
all right. I'm gonna reach out because I feel like
I think it'd be great, like to have, to work together.
I think there's a lot that can be done in collaboration, partnership, whatever it may be.
Yes.
Not necessarily with me. It doesn't have to be, but I'm not
No,
trying to
needs to
pitch
be
you
with
guys
you.
to hire me or anything like that. I'm just saying like there's marketing involved one way or the other.
100%.
Okay, so what about back to like education?
Yes.
You're super passionate about literacy,
Yes.
right? Like how do we grow, reading and
Yeah.
writing and arithmetic?
Yes. Well, and the reason I'm so super passionate about it, so my son plays sports. My oldest son, even when this started at Abel, so this was, gosh, he was there 9 years ago.
Okay.
That's crazy. I feel like we're on round 2, right? Because he was at Abel and now our youngest is at SJ. So I'm like, we're ready for the junior high can be kind of crazy. So I'm like, we're
Sure.
ready. Let's do this. But I remember with my oldest son, I was talking to some of his friends one day. It was after football practice and I was giving them a ride home. And we were talking about their grades, and it's like, it's almost the 6 weeks, right? It's like, we got a football game. Everybody needs to be passing. And one of them just was not at all. And I was like, what's going on? And I remember, and it was so shocking. And he was like, well, I'm on a third grade reading level. And I'm like, you're lying.
Yeah.
And so I was like, and I didn't know him that well at the time. So I'm like, really? Like, how do you know, or what's going on? And then I asked him, like, what do your parents say? Are you in tutoring? And he was just like, no, so I'm like, you're in 7th grade on a third grade reading level. And that's happening a lot. And it's still happening. And I see it with a lot of these kids that I'm around.
Mhm.
And it's so heartbreaking because what happens is, okay, so you're in school, you're struggling, you're moving on to the next grade, and some are in different levels, right?
Sure.
Like some, it might be they're going to get it fixed within that year, but some just keep falling further and further behind. Well, one thing you think about is when kids are getting in trouble, my first thought is, what's their reading level? That's my first thought now. Like, what's going on? Because think about when you were in school and you were the class clown, so maybe this wasn't you, but I can remember kids that struggled reading out loud when we used to read out loud in
Sure.
class,
It's
and
traumatic sometimes.
yes,
Yeah.
and I could feel so bad, and it's embarrassing, and you don't know what's going on. Like, you don't even know why you're in there. You don't want your friends to know that you don't understand what's happening. And so you're acting out, really sometimes just to get out of that environment.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And so I think as a community and as a district, we have to also take ownership when we're just like, these kids are getting in trouble and getting in trouble. How much of that is our fault? Is my question. Like, we
Mhm.
need to make sure. I think about the Culver Youth Center. There's a lot of kids over there at the Juvenile Delinquent Center, and most of those kids are not where they need to be education wise.
Mhm.
And so we have to make sure, like, how are we contributing to these kids getting in trouble and not having confidence in class, or not even wanting to go to school or dropping out in school. And a lot of it starts at the foundational level in elementary school. It's just like anything, your marriage, your home, your foundation
Mhm.
matters. And so that's why I'm very passionate about, getting them when they're young, because so much it comes after that, whether they're doing good or bad. And I've talked to teachers. I have a friend of mine, she's a 4th grade teacher, amazing teacher. Like, let me just say how amazing she is.
Please.
She had the TEA commissioner come and visit her classroom. Like, that's how great she is. And so, But she's told me stories of like she gets kids sometimes and they're not ready for 4th grade. And she'll call the parents and let them know. And that's awkward, right? It's like,
Right.
hey, I don't know where you came
Because you
from
don't
or who
want to
you
place
were.
blame right
Yeah.
right
So
off the bat, and people get defensive.
they do.
Right.
And it's hard. And it's just like, and I feel like as a district, we have to really be intentional about our K through 3rd grade, and making sure those teachers have the resources that they need. Make sure that those teachers have the support that they need, because that is such an important piece. Because then if you just keep passing them along, how frustrating to be a junior high teacher and you have a kid in your class that's not ready to be in that class.
Sure.
And then you have other kids who are they're excelling and doing amazing. That's really hard. And so that's another part of like that are some things that our teachers are going through that they shouldn't have to go through.
Yeah, they need more time with the children who are behind,
Mm-hmm.
and the children that are overachievers, kudos.
Yes.
Right. But you still have to balance that.
Yes. And I'll say this as well. And this is why the board is important, because the superintendent is going to do what the board is kind of asking for. Right. So if the board's not really into the reading aspect at the foundational level, well, then she has to focus on the other requirements that are needed. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So that's why I think it's important as board members being able to go to the foundation. Like, let's start from the beginning. Like, where is it turning wrong?
Mhm.
Let's start there. And what can we do? Do we need to, or does the board need to approve a different type of budget? Do we need to move money from here to here? What is it that we need to do? But the first thing is realizing that there's an issue.
There's an
there.
issue, right?
Yes.
You got to get to the root of it, like you
There
were
you go.
saying.
Mhm.
Okay, so for a student or a number of students were falling behind,
Uh-huh.
but the norm is to just keep, hey, go to the next grade and maybe you can get the help there with that teacher,
Mhm.
and then the next grade, and all of a sudden you're in 10th grade. Like the flip side back in the day, and please, if I'm wrong, would be to hold the child back
Mhm.
a grade,
Mhm.
and that sounds traumatic to an extent to the child,
Absolutely.
right?
Mhm.
Because you're looking at
All
it
your
like,
friends.
all my friends are moving on,
Yeah.
and I'm stuck back here in 3rd grade.
Right.
How do you balance that? Like what is?
Right.
It doesn't seem like there's a cut and dry solution here.
Well, I think it starts, and I learned this with like some of our choice schools or partnership schools, is just immediate intervention.
Okay.
So that's number one. It's like, okay, let's not wait till summer school. Let's not wait till semester break. As a parent, we get 3-week progress reports, 6-week progress reports. If we're at the 3 weeks, why can't we implement things or help these schools or classes? It's like, hey, you're 3 weeks in and you're not right. It's
Right.
like what?
Until the end of the last semester or last quarter, you're going like, oh, by the way, this child's been struggling this whole time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And as parents, like, and I'll defend parents as well. We're not teachers. Some of us are. I'm not. But, and so I respect the teachers and what do they need? Like, how can I, like, tell me what to do to help you? Is it, hey, you need to stay after. And the district does do this now, which is really great, is they do offer tutorials. Right.
Mm.
So if you're struggling in a certain class, then you go to tutorials in the morning, go in the afternoon. And I think just really engaging at the 6 weeks of like, okay, this is where you're at, so that it's not a surprise at the end of the school year. Like you should totally repeat this entire year.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and that goes back to just the communication. And yes, not every kid's going to go to tutorials. I get that, but it's just still providing that opportunity and that space. And then being able to have those uncomfortable conversations of like, I want your child to be successful.
Right.
But I think those conversations are easier to have at the elementary level than like 9th grade.
I went to junior high with a kid who was driving in junior high.
What?
And I was like, I don't know what happened to him, but hope the best. How much is iPads and AI, like how much of an issue is this becoming in the schools?
Well, I mean, it depends on which part. So
I guess technology, like we're all moving to technology,
Yes.
less handwriting, more
Right.
typing and
Yep.
everything. And then you've got ChatGPT and things like that,
Yes.
which are can be influencing
Right.
test scores and things like that. Like,
Yes, absolutely.
is that becoming a huge issue?
Well, so on the electronic side, cell phones, I'll start there. The district did just recently approve no cell phone policy from bell to bell, except if you're in secondary. I believe you or high school, you can have your phone like in between passing periods.
Okay.
So that's really been a huge help to just have that support from the school board and district to let teachers know and say like, hey, no cell phones. But as far as the educational piece, I know this comes up a lot, technology, but that's the world that we're in.
Sure.
And it's funny because it's like, I don't want to, am I turning into my parents when they're like, well, back in my day, we didn't have pens, we had pencils or
Right.
whatever, right? So we shouldn't do that now and say, well, back in my day, we didn't even know what iPads were. It's like,
Right.
okay, but they're here. And one thing that MISD talks about is preparing kids when they graduate to be college, career, military ready. Well, that's what careers are using. That's what colleges are using. So if we're not finding ways to utilize, AI or technology, are they really going to be prepared when they go to
Real world.
Yeah, are they going to be prepared? So that's just part of it. It doesn't mean that we have to like it. You know what I mean? I mean, but that's just where we're at now. And so I think every generation is probably going to always say that.
Sure.
Back in my day,
it's gonna be virtual reality here soon, right? We're just gonna be wearing goggles.
I know, like, yeah, mom, I'm in class.
Right. I'm okay with it. I'm a nerd. I like this stuff, but I can see where it's like, well, like you were talking about, like, you still have to have the foundation, the fundamentals, right?
Absolutely.
Like when somebody asked me to even sign anything, I'm like, cursive. I'm like, what? Let me text you this. But that's where we're moving to.
Yes.
So,
and
okay.
what's interesting about that, homework. Homework is such an interesting topic. So I don't know if you've seen like, YouTube videos or TikToks where like the dads or the parents are trying to help their kid with their homework,
I
right?
have no idea.
And it's like they're getting frustrated. It's like if Johnny had 2 apples, and like that does happen a lot in homes. And so a lot of times what's being learned in the classroom, yeah, we're not used to that as parents because that's not how we learned math or how we did certain things. And so I have talked to a lot of teachers that do try not to send homework home. A lot of times if your kid has homework, it's because they didn't finish in class.
Oh, okay.
So I think and that depends on the teacher or the, policy. But I do, like for my son, there are a lot of teachers that they don't really send homework home.
Man, what? I'm jealous. I'm like, why do I have 5 subjects of homework
But I
tonight?
think too, you have to think about who's at home helping them with the homework. First of all, is
Sure.
there somebody home
Right.
helping them with the homework? And one thing everybody always talks about is like, well, the Permian Basin, we have a low literacy rate for adults. Okay, so and then we're gonna send homework home,
Mm.
right?
Right. What's going to get accomplished, really? Right. At scale.
So and if it's just finishing, which a lot of teachers do a great job, it's like they know what to do. They were just goofing off in class or not paying attention, so they need to go finish it. I think that's most of it. But no, I'm good with the technology and making sure that our kids are prepared to be successful, whether that's college, career, military.
You are clearly a very engaged parent, right?
Mhm.
And you're not just trying to talk the talk, right? You're wanting to walk the walk. You want to make change.
Mhm.
I think that there's a number of parents would be like, not my problem.
Yeah.
Any type of situation. So
Oh yeah.
I do want to give you a ton of respect. I respect working moms, working parents, teachers. And so anytime, somebody's like, no, I want to make a change. I want to be a part of this. I give you the utmost respect because
Thank you.
it can't be an easy job. You're clearly not doing it for the money or something.
Yeah.
Right. And at the same time, like every idea that you want to bring up to the board, right? You run the risk of going like, yeah, 50% of the people are like, great. And 50% of people are like, I hate this.
Yeah.
Right. And so, there's a balance that,
Absolutely.
but you want to make a difference. So I congratulate you there.
Thank you.
So let's move forward. Let's end on some positivity here. So it's boom, you're elected, you're on the school board, right? What's your plan? What are you looking to do like right off the bat? What are you most passionate about making change with?
Free lunch for everybody. No, I'm kidding.
Oh,
Really just getting our failing schools
Okay.
where they need to be, because honestly, and for me, it is a heart issue, because I do get that a lot. I've had people ask me in the past, like, first, a lot of people think I'm a stay-at-home mom, or they think I work for the district, because it's like, why do you care so much, right? It's like,
Okay.
why do
Yeah.
you? And for me, it's just a heart issue. You know, I am a Christian, and you know, when I see kids and families struggling, and Midland is full of families on all different aspects. Not everybody's making six figures in the oil field. You know, not everybody has two parents at home,
Right.
you know? And so a lot of us are just trying to make it. You know what I mean? And we do care about our kids' education. We love our kids, right? But we just don't know what to do or how can we help. And so being able to bridge that gap to help. And so the first thing I really want to do is just implement ways to work with campuses on what they need, how we can get more community members or parents involved. What does that look like for them? And then helping our most struggling campuses. I mean, we don't have, I hear sometimes people say, you know, well, we're on a 5-year plan. I'm like, my kid's going to be graduated by then.
Right.
Right. It's like,
Just kicking the bucket down the.
yeah. And I get it takes a lot. It does take time to make things happen, but you have to have a sense of urgency, and you have to be willing to be bold enough to say no. Like, we have to make a change now. We got to be able to do things differently, because it might not be your kid, but it shouldn't have to be your kid
Right.
to care enough. And that just helps the whole city of Midland anyway. A lot of these kids are going to stay here.
Right.
You know what I mean?
They're the future generation, the future leaders.
Yeah. And so what are we investing into them? You know, and I'm so grateful that the bond passed. I think that's huge. That's a great thing. And I'm so excited to watch that progress happen. But at the academic level, you know, we need to make sure that we are championing our school district. And I get people have choices. I have friends and family that are homeschooled, private school, all the things. That's great. You know, do whatever works for you. But for us, it's about the public school and the kids and the ones that don't have those options. You know, they don't. And so I want to be able to be part of that group that's like, hey, let's help our district and let's help them have a chance as well in Midland.
Well said.
Thank you.
I want to thank you again for coming in today on a Friday. I appreciate that. And I know that the voting is right around the corner,
I know,
the
it's
election.
crazy.
But if anybody wants to support or, you know, find out more information, where should they go? Like website, social media?
Denise4MISD.com is my website, and I'm on Facebook, Denise4MISD.com. So yeah, I'd love your vote. I never thought I'd be running for school board. I'm sure like I've talked to some of like my high school teachers, and they're like, I mean, they're not like too surprised. I'm like, really? You're not surprised?
They're like, you? Okay.
They're like, yeah, that's Denise. So, but no, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course.
I'm ready for Midland, Texas to be on the map when it comes to not just oil and gas, but our public education here too.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
And go vote for Denise.
Thank you.
And with that, we'll see you on the next one. Bye.